The topic today, the theme is the Mediterranean diet. And first of all, I'd like to introduce myself, Renee, Lalonde, and I've been with Terroir for the better part of a decade or so, working with Arlene. And I was very excited to host this talk, as I have a lot of interest in the Mediterranean diet and olive oil specifically, and all that it encompasses. So I would like to tell you first a little bit about the diet, which the United Nations had documented the Mediterranean diet as endangered. UNESCO, which is the educational, scientific, and cultural organization branch of the UN, designated the Mediterranean diet as part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity back in 2013. So the diet has been, I think, appropriated by the diet trend for the past decade or more, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, because it reaches that many more people who perhaps wouldn't have learned of the healthful benefits otherwise. But the fad limits the vast benefits that go far beyond just food. It really is a holistic approach that, as UNESCO puts it, is a complex set of skills, knowledge, rituals, symbols, and traditions concerning crops, harvesting, fishing, animal husbandry, conservation, processing, cooking, and particularly the sharing and consumption of food. So it's very in-depth. They go on to say the Mediterranean diet emphasizes values of hospitality, intercultural dialogue and creativity, and a way of life guided by respect for diversity. It plays a vital role in cultural spaces, markets, festivals, and celebrations, bringing together people of all ages, conditions, and social classes. It includes the craftsmanship and production of traditional vessels for the transport, preservation, and consumption of food, including ceramic plates and glasses. Women play a very important role in passing along knowledge of the Mediterranean diet. They safeguard its techniques, respect seasonal rhythms and festive events, and they pass on the values to new generations. What I personally most enjoy is the sharing and consumption part, but what inspires me is learning about the history, how animals and produce are farmed and treated, the unique traditions that vary from region to region, and exploring cultural identity. So what I hope to do today is to dig a little deeper into what this means to my guests. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to three exceptional people: Voula Halliday, Melissa Finn, and Athan Gadanidis. First, we'll bring on Voula. Voula is a cordon bleu trained chef, educator, professional recipe developer, and illustrator. Her work has appeared in print and digital formats in many, many publications, including Chatelaine, where she was both a contributing editor and an associate in the test kitchen. She was an in-house chef expert on the award-winning CBC daytime show Stephen and Chris. She's also a cookbook author, having published Eat at Home, her first book a few years ago, and now has 2 new books coming out very soon. So, hello to Voula. Welcome, Voula. Thank you so much.
It's wonderful to be here, Renee. I want to share with you all how grateful I am. And thank you so much to Renee and Arlene for organizing this and making it happen. These conversations that Terroir Talks has been having for a while now and continues to have are really important to me. They've been a big part of my culinary education. My culinary curiosity has been satisfied and has been immensely nourished through these terroir experiences. Connecting me to my heritage, my Greek history, is something that whenever I speak about it, I get very emotional. It's something that's really, really important to me. I was not born in Greece. My parents came to Canada in the 50s, and I was born and raised here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Not sure where all our guests are from, but that's where I'm coming from. But I was brought up with this experience of these incredible flavors that I actually think are bred in the bone for me. I crave the elements of the Mediterranean, the ingredients, the lifestyle, and of course, what we call the diet, the food that they eat there. And so much of what I cook is rooted from this sort of deep, deep desire and longing to go back in time to where I come from. Today, this recipe that I'm sharing with you captures all of the extraordinary flavors that I love the most. What I like about this is that it's very simple to prepare. The ingredients are accessible. It doesn't matter where you are from. The chances that you can get your hands on olive oil, dried figs, the herbs and the spices that I'm using today, I think are pretty good. And when I teach you how to do this and you taste it for the first time, when you smell it as you're preparing it in your kitchen, you will feel what it is that I am talking about. You will feel that deep stirring inside you that connects you to the sun, to the sky, to the sea, to all of these wonderful things that come from a place in the world that I think we're all in love with. So having made that assumption, I'm bringing you on board and taking you on a great journey. We're going to make a savory and sweet fig mixture compote that's going to create for us two elements, the actual beautiful hydrated and infused figs. And it's also going to create for us a fig syrup. One of the things that I love about the Mediterranean cuisine or the Mediterranean lifestyle and culture is the reason why it's so nourishing actually is because they rely on simple, basic ingredients that they can access easily locally, that are part of their terroir, and they find ways to really use things up. Nothing goes to waste. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that with this recipe as well. So the first step in this recipe is we're going to prepare our figs. Here are two bowls that you can see, the dark figs, which I used here, and our white figs, which I'm going to use today. 1.5 cups. All the instructions are going to be in your notes that you're going to get from Renee online in your email. Very simple. We basically are going to remove our stem. We don't want that. That's pretty hard and crunchy. And we're going to slice our figs into 1/4-inch rounds. We're going to take our beautiful, beautiful dried figs and put them into our pot. The next ingredient that we want, now all of the flavors and all the elements that we're using today are bringing the Mediterranean to us. I especially appreciate it today because here in Ontario, we've had like a humongous dump of snow and there's tons of snow. So getting a little sunshine and a little flavor in here is going to be great. We're going to do the zest of one orange. Yeah. Which I did already. I zested that already. That's going in. And we're going to juice. Now, if you did not have an orange at home, and all you had was a lemon, then a lemon is perfectly fine. What you want is about half a cup rather of juice, and whole juice now of the orange in there. We're going to add our flavor elements. Now, these elements are also an important part of Mediterranean cuisine. And the Mediterraneans, as many cultures do, they rely quite a bit on the natural medicinal properties of a lot of foods, and spices are really big. So there is anti-inflammatory qualities, there's heart health qualities, there is studies that are being done on cancer fighting properties with different herbs and spices. The ones that we're using today, you could do tons of research on this and learn a whole lot about it. But the ones that I'm using today are mustard seeds. You could use white or brown, black peppercorns, Peppercorns they add a beautiful bite to anything that you're creating sweet. I encourage you to experiment with them in your sweet making, especially nice with things like fig and balsamic vinegar and strawberries. And then we're using fennel seeds. Fennel seeds are appreciated around the world for their anti-inflammatory, digestive benefits, all that good stuff. I have strung this together. You don't have to. I normally don't make this recipe with my herbs strung together. I did it today to make it easier since I'm demonstrating. It'll be easier for me to pull it out of my pot. So that's going in there as well. Pretty simple. So we've got everything in our pot. We're going to set it. This is like that simple. But when it comes together and when you taste what happens with this, boy, oh boy, will you be ever happy. Okay, so here's what's going to happen next. This guy is going to come up to a boil. As soon as it comes up to a boil, we're going to turn it down to a simmer, and we're going to leave this to simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. What we want to achieve with that is to, first of all, hydrate our dried figs, get them all like beautiful and soft. And we want to bring all our flavors together. This is where you're going to really start to smell like things in the house. It's just like, it's so beautiful. And the other thing that we're going to end up having happen here is, oops, I forgot, we need honey. We have our sweetener. So this is half a cup of honey. That goes in as well. What's going to happen with the honey is it's going to create a bit of a preservative element, a whole lot of nourishment. And it's also going to, besides sweetening, help us create a bit of a syrupy thickening. This will take like 10 to 15 minutes. I'm not going to hold us up with that. I'm going to take a moment while it comes up to a boil to see if Renee, if you had any questions you wanted to ask me, give this a chance. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So where did you grew up in Canada? You were born and raised in Canada, right? But you go back home quite a bit.
We try to, that's for sure.
And so the traditions and the cooking and all of that, like where did you get your inspiration? Where did you learn how to cook from? Who did you learn how to cook from?
That's one of the best questions you could ask me. I feel so blessed. When I was growing up, my family were so generous to me. They encouraged me, and I was very curious. I really wanted to get into the kitchen from very young, and I wanted to taste things all the time. So my mom has told me a story about how, she and my aunties and uncles were all cooking together. I grew up poor. We all lived like in an apartment together. So I grew up with aunts and uncles around and grandparents around, which was wonderful. And, they would cook together and there'd be like a plate with like the prep ingredients on it. My mom says I would like literally pick up like an onion and eat it like it was an apple. And when my uncle put like frog legs in front of me or, snails or something, I was just like, ugh. Like I really loved eating it. Those influences were huge for me. My family really, really, did great things to encourage me to get to know food and cook food. And I learned from my dad and my uncles. I think it's in me naturally. My great uncle was the chef to the last king of Greece, King George, which I just wish so bad that I could have met him. He was dead before I was born, so I didn't get that opportunity. But yeah, it's coming all from my family. It really is. It's just that they taught me things. My aunties, I had a Yugoslavian aunt, I had a Polish aunt. I have my cousins married into a Jamaican family. So I've had learning from that, like just all that stuff. The next steps would come to boil. We'd leave it to simmer for about 15 minutes. Then you're going to remove it from the heat, set it aside. Then you're going to remove your figs. So I took those figs out of the pot. I stored them in my jars. They're now ready to use. Set them aside. What you'll have left is the mixture that's got all the spices in it. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
And your syrup. So that's all in the pot still. You're going to put your pot back on the stove with everything in there except these guys. They've been removed. And you're going to bring it to a boil again and simmer so you get like that. It starts to thicken until you get your syrup. Then,
and what dishes? What other food? What would this go with? I mean, cheese comes to my mind.
cheese, ice cream. I would put it on top to finish a pizza. This would be awesome on a pizza, on yogurt, on Greek yogurt, of course, for breakfast.
Okay.
Do it thicker and make this on pancakes. What we were going to do today is very quickly, this will be my last bit, is we were going to mix together the figs, some of the I was going to warm the syrup. And we would basically, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Sort of. Some beautiful fresh goat cheese, something really light and lovely. You'd use brie, whatever. And then we'd have a combo of, pretend that this was all mixed up with the olive oil and the syrup. And that would be a beautiful appetizer. So in a bowl, we were basically going to do a mixture of olive oil, a half a cup of figs, and a half a cup of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes our drizzle. And you can make your drizzle as thin or as thick as you want. In this form, after it's whisked and everything, you can also use this on grilled vegetables, grilled meats, grilled tofu, grilled warm feta. It's such a multi-purpose. I'm really sorry about my camera, but thank you so much, everybody.
Oh, perfect. It's fine. It adds that real element, you know?
Right.
Real time. And I see Mel Finn. Thank you so much, Mel, for joining us. And Vu, thanks so much. This is delicious. Bye for now.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If I can introduce Mel, I'll just give you a little brief overview. Her career in food and beverage is rooted in her passion for natural ingredients and the fascinating stories of where food comes from. She's been a bartender in an award-winning fine dining restaurant focused on local seasonal cuisine and moved on to general management positions. She's an avid forager, which I had the honor of experiencing with her one-on-one, and I will never forget it, specializing in mushrooms and favoring the often neglected edibles to create delicious natural treats like sodas made with wild harvested yeast from foraged ingredients. Mel has learned how to mindfully cultivate an edible garden and studying the cycle of bees and beekeeping. She's also a skilled hunter, and she makes a mean bear ragu and a killer cocktail to sip while she's preparing the dish. So we are looking forward to that. Welcome, Mel. Thank you so much again for joining me. And why don't you explain a little bit, give us a little explanation of what you're planning on doing, a hot and cold cocktail.
Sure, yeah. Voula and I sort of put our heads together when she was putting her recipe. I wanted to do something that could complement it as well. And so we thought it would be fun to have an after dinner option and a before dinner option, or a before and after dinner option. So what I have done is I've taken Greek brandy that's infused with herbs. You may be familiar with it. It's called Metaxa. They have various vintages of it at the LCBO. I'm sure globally it's fairly accessible as well. But any brandy would do. I've also taken a Greek extra virgin olive oil. I took about a cup of the brandy itself, and then I added 2 tablespoons of the brandy, of the olive oil to the brandy. And I let it sit for about 24 hours at room temperature. I gave it a good shake a few times throughout the day. and then it just strained off the oil. What you're left with is the flavor and some of the nutrients of the olive oil inside the brandy itself. It's called washing. So when you wash a spirit in this way, it changes the mouthfeel. You get a little bit of that viscous, oily texture. It doesn't come across greasy though, because the alcohol cuts through that. This could, when we were doing our initial chat, Renee mentioned, I'm sure Athan will touch on this as well, but I know Athan does this for its health benefits with a neutral spirit as well. So it's a really old school style of essentially making a tincture on the same wavelength of tincture, because rosemary is used in Voula's dish, and I think of Mediterranean, I think of big rosemary bushes and the air just smelling like rosemary and all those really sort of aromatic herbs. So I put some rosemary inside of a neutral spirit. So I just use a vodka. It's a little bit more difficult in Ontario to get your hands on an overproof spirit, but if I was able to, I would use Everclear or something similar. It basically just tastes like nothing, and it's really high in alcohol. So you get the flavor of what you're basically steeping in it. So I would do that with foraged ingredients as well. I've got a whole bunch behind me here. I'm always tinkering and throwing things in spirits just to see what they taste like.
And so does your heart lead you to putting olive oil in your cocktails? How do you feel about that?
I feel really good about it. I worked at a restaurant where we did play around with doing olive oil washes on different drinks. We had one cocktail in particular. So it's not brand new to me, but doing it with the Metaxa is the Metaxa we played around with in the summer for a Greek cooking class that we did with some of our friends. You were there, Renee. And I just thought it was so cool. I had never tasted it before. And there's like a stewed fruit quality and a aromatic herb quality. And I was just so shocked at the flavor profile. It was really unique, I think, in the hot and cold realm. I think that it's pretty versatile. I was pretty excited to use it. So that's why we ended up choosing a hot and a cold beverage today. So for the hot cocktail, I wanted to keep it really simple and just sort of highlight the flavors in the Metaxa itself. I'm just going to pour myself some hot water. It might make a little bit of a noise for a second, but there are a few ways that you can heat up a snifter. We'll go through both of those. You can pour hot water in the snifter itself just to warm it up. That will add some warmth to the spirit itself. That's a great way to warm your glass. Also, you can add boiling water to a glass and rest your snifter on top of that, and that will heat it up as well. But I'm going to add the spirit to the glass first. If you decide to heat the glass with hot water, you can do that, let it sit for a minute, and then build your cocktail in it and move forward the way we will. So I've got my washed Metaxa here, so the olive oil washed Metaxa. I'm just doing 1 ounce of that brandy there. I've got my rosemary tincture. I'm just doing a few drops of that, maybe 3 or 4. I don't want to overpower. Again, I'm just trying to accentuate the flavor that's in the Metaxa itself and just sort of bump up the herbaceousness. It's also gonna cut a bit of the sweetness. It'll add a little bit more complexity and some bitterness, which again cuts through that sweet. So I've got those in there. I'm going to get it heating over the glass. And the third way you can heat you can heat your brandy or whatever beverage you want to heat in a snifter. We would do this in the restaurant too. It's kind of showy. You don't need to, it's not necessary. It does kind of change the flavor profile a little bit. Before I do that though, I'm just going to take a zest. I'm going to garnish it with some organic grapefruit peel, just the zest. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I just want to get some of the essential oils out of the zest into the glass itself. So to light it, if you're going to brave this at home, I mean, again, use your judgment. Have something to cover the glass to put it out. But you just want to light the edge of it, and you probably won't be able to see it there, but it'll turn into like a little blue flame. And then once that gets lit, you take the zest in your hands like this, and you're gonna squeeze the edges down to express out some of the citrus. And then I would twist it and then just plunk it in there. I'm using my hand because oxygen goes away when you do that. So that's the super simple heated warm metaxa. This would be great with Voula's dish as an accompaniment or as an after dinner drink. The only thing I will note is although the grapefruit zest in it is lovely, because it's already heated, you don't want it to sit in there too long. So even though I threw it in there, I wouldn't leave it in there. Through some of my testing, I noticed it got a little bit too pithy for my liking. But if you like that, if you love marmalade and that sort of thing, then you might like it. So again, we're going to use the olive oil washed metaxa. I was playing around with different citrus. Obviously, I have grapefruit on hand. There's tons of fruit that could be associated to Greek food. So I went to the organic shop and just picked something that I thought was special. I thought I haven't seen blood orange yet this year. I haven't really been looking, but I came across these beautiful blood oranges. And I really they're just so gorgeous. The inside flesh is awesome. They're so dark and beautiful. They have an oranginess to them, obviously, but they're a little bit higher in acidity. So you'll cut through sweet, you'll cut through fat. It's just a really kind of fun flavor to play with, and I don't get to do it so often. So that's why I selected it. So I've squeezed, this is the juice from actually 1.5 blood oranges. It doesn't yield a ton, but I'm only going to use 1 ounce. So I've got 1 ounce of the blood orange juice. And then I'm going to do 1.5 ounces of the metaxa that I've washed with olive oil. I'm going to do, instead of just a couple drops, I'm going to do a couple dashes of the rosemary tincture. And then I'm going to add some honey. Now, honey can be tricky to add to cocktails because, or chilled cocktails, because it gets really hard and it doesn't like to break up. It's a little bit finicky that way. So what we would do in the restaurant is just loosen it with a bit of warm water and make it more syrupy. The olive oil that the honey that I have right now is actually quite liquidy, so I'm not too worried. I'm going to do 2 bar spoons, which is about 1/8 of an ounce to 1/4 of an ounce of honey for my cocktail. And you can add more or less depending on how sweet your fruit is a good thing to consider. And the acidity, obviously, depending on how acidic your oranges are, that you'll need more or less. Or if you just like sweeter cocktails, then add more. It's more of a choose your own adventure type thing. So let your heart guide you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got our honey, and then I'm just gonna throw a bunch of ice cubes in there. You want to always put way more ice than you have liquid. The idea there is that you're just chilling the chilling the liquid itself, you don't want to dilute it. So if you only add a little bit of ice, it's just going to water down your drink. So the more ice you add, the less diluted it is. And again, that's a personal preference too. If you wanted it more diluted, sometimes that brings out more flavor or different flavors in the cocktail. So that's kind of fun too. But just play around with it. So I gave it a really hard shake just to try and incorporate some of the the honey there. And I'm going to double strain it. Technically speaking, I guess if you want to get technical, if you're doing a cocktail that's not over ice, you would double strain it if it gets shaken, just because you don't want little ice chips.
Oh, that looks great. So pretty, the color.
Yeah, the blood orange is so awesome.
So really your inspiration is the market, what you see around
for sure.
Day, week, month.
I had such a specific picture in my mind, but as soon as I saw those blood oranges, they just called to me. So I kind of I rejigged everything I had planned to make those work. But it ended up working really well. I've consumed blood orange juice, but I haven't pressed my own blood oranges to taste it, and they were so beautiful and acidic and lovely, and with the honey and the rosemary, it was great.
Oh, it sounds amazing. We're going to post these recipes, or we'll actually send them out to our audience later. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So fun. I can't wait for 5 o'clock. Maybe I won't wait for 5 o'clock.
I'm not.
I might just have to start a little sooner, but we won't talk about that now. And here is Athan. Thank you for joining. Mel, thank you so much. And welcome, Athan.
Thank you. Hello, Renee. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to introduce you. You have become a vocal advocate for the full implementation of health claim regulations and the establishment of a recently new category of extra virgin olive oil high in polyphenols. Athan helped establish the term high phenolic EVOO, extra virgin olive oil, by using it in all his articles to describe this. These articles have been published in many magazines and blogs, as well as on syndicated platforms. His advocacy is helping to clarify and shape policy for the implementation of official health claims for polyphenols. Athan was also instrumental in the development of devices to measure polyphenols in olive oil. He is currently focused on development of an application for olive growers to ensure the traceability, transparency, and guaranteed quality. Olive oil isn't just for flavor. It's also for serious health reasons. Mm-hmm. Research is indicating that high phenolic EVOO is somewhere between a food and a medicine for conditions ranging from a long list of cancers to autism, leukemia, and Alzheimer's. Athan and his wife split their time living in Greece, Cyprus, and Toronto, Canada. So here you go. You're not here now. You're not in Toronto.
No.
You're smart. You're in Greece. Are you in Greece now?
Yes, I'm on an island of Aegina, which is just off the port of Piraeus, 45 minutes.
Fantastic.
Yes. So
I
we have a complete lockdown here, so it's
it's same.
We're being patient.
So this is very fascinating. The work that you've been doing. How is that coming along? What are some of the challenges and issues that you're coming up against? And what can we do? What can we do as consumers? Or some of the things I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, well, it's been a long journey since 2012 when I first came to Greece and started with this and got inspired to get involved in the olive oil research and development, specifically with the EU Health Claim 432-2012. Because what that did for the first time, it gave a specific number, a specific concentration of polyphenols that has to be in the olive oil so you have a health effect. And just to make a note here, I know we call them polyphenols, but actually that's not accurate, because when they wrote the health claim, because I did a lot of research on this, I sound like I'm a chemist, but what happened was the health claim was given, the people who wrote the health claim were epidemiologists. They were not analytical chemistry scientists. So they don't know much about chemistry of substances in plants and so forth. And so they used the term polyphenol, which is not accurate. It's biophenols. There's very few polyphenols in olive oil. Most of them are biophenols. So polyphenol is more in wine, just to get that out of the way. So there's been a lot of missteps with the health claim from the beginning, either deliberate or by accident. But but now, so what we get, where it has gone to now is, after a lot of debate and so forth, we have now completed a 3-year study, EU program called our Stoll Interreg program, and which we studied how to make, how to produce high phenolic olive oil, how to store it, how to mill it, how to transport it, and how to display it. So now we're working on the marketing plan for it, and it's very interesting what we found out, because with a high phenolic olive oil, we need to protect the polyphenols inside, because that's where the value is. That's why people are paying much higher price for it. And so we need to control the quality right from the harvest to the mill, to the bottling, warehousing, transportation, and display. So that's why we're developing different ways, like blockchain perhaps, or other certification methods, to ensure that there's complete transparency in every aspect of the journey of the olive oil to the consumers or clients' hands. Because some people are taking it for serious conditions, like leukemia and other conditions, cancers and so forth. So we need to be responsible to make sure what they pay for is what they get. But the interesting thing, just to make it clear, that olive oil can never be a medicine, because it's a food. So the regulations state that there's no way that a food can be a medicine. So no matter even if it cures cancer, you cannot call it a medicine. Now, the medicinal aspects of olive oil is in the biophenols. That's what gives the health effect. And we've seen that with as little as 5 milligrams a day of biophenols, you have the effect that the health claim says, which says that it may reduce the LDL oxidation, which is, LDL is fine, it's a good, it's a cholesterol, but if it oxidizes, that's when it becomes harmful. So it reduces the oxidation of LDL with 5 milligrams. But with, like we've done one clinical trial, was just amazing, that we'll have the results, will be published in an official journal soon, with leukemia, multiple myeloma leukemia. We had 25 patients who began to drink 40 grams of olive oil, which had about 30 milligrams of polyphenols in it. So it's much higher than the 5 milligram minimum the health claim states. And after 1 month, the white blood cells count started dropping. These patients were not under any medication. They were not given any other dietary intervention. They weren't told to become vegetarian or start exercising, anything else. Just replace your olive oil with this one. And the results were remarkable, because their white blood cells count dropped and remained and reached the point where before they were even diagnosed. So white blood cells then maintained themselves for a year, 2 years, just with the olive oil.
And where do we get this olive oil? Like, you can't, is it a special kind of olive oil? Where can we buy it?
Yes, this is olive oil that's, it's usually high, early harvest. It's very strong taste. You can recognize by the bite in the neck, in the throat, that makes you want to makes you want to cough, or with the sense of the in the tongue, like it's bitter. These olive oils are being made more available. They're hard to produce, because you have to go really early when the olives are green. And it's interesting that this was written about 2,000 years ago by a doctor called Dioscorides. And he said that the only olive oil that could even be considered to be medicinal has to be produced from green, unripened olives. So they didn't know about biophenols back then, but what they knew is from experience. So they knew that this olive oil is it gives you more energy, or it helps you feel better, or they used it for massage a lot. They also use it for a lot of cancers as well, like skin cancer.
So you were telling me about how you put it in water and drink.
Yeah.
You put olive oil in water, turn it upside down, let the polyphenols ooze out, and then just pour the water part, and you've got all the nutritional benefits from the olive oil.
Yeah, I prefer it in wine, but
Sure.
you can do it in water as well, because when the higher phenolic, now we have olive oils that have over 1,000 milligrams, like a gram per liter. So they're very strong. But to get, if somebody has a serious condition and they want to try it, starting to consume a lower phenolic olive oil, you need to drink a lot of olive oil. And that is not good because, it's a lot of calories, a lot of fat. It doesn't have the best, you're not going to get the best result. So the best thing is to get the most high phenolic olive oil you can find if you want to try it for some condition like, leukemia or anything else, just to try it, because we can't make any claims about it. But you can certainly give it a shot and see if it works for you.
Just overall health benefits. I mean, it cannot hurt, can it?
No.
So,
There's been no, because the Greeks, we've been drinking this wine for millennium, early harvest olive oil.
Right.
I mean, that's what I grew up with. We had it and we had it for, they used to open the olive mills and then close them. Open them up in October, make this just for the family, and close the olive mills, come back to make for the rest of the population. Because you make less of it. Yeah, you lose about 50% and more sometimes of the production.
Right.
But what we're developing now is a way to test the olive oil and do 3 spot checks in the bottle. We choose bottles off the shelf or where it's stored, and we test it for the polyphenol value to see how much is dropped. Because they do drop over time. Usually about a year, drop about 20%, 15 to 20%, but it depends on the conditions. If it's in a hot warehouse where it's not climate control, then you're going to have problems. We're going to put the olive oils in wine coolers, set at temperature between 13 and 15 degrees. So you'll have these branded wine coolers or high phenolic olive coolers, where you'll be in these olive oils that are in there have been tested and guaranteed to have what they say they have. And so that way we'll separate these olive oils from the rest of the extra virgin olive oils. And then anything you buy from that cooler, you can be rest assured that it's been certified and tested to be exactly what it says it is.
So currently, as a consumer, we just have to do a little bit of research, learn about the grower, where the oil came from, and make our decisions there. Invest in your food products, and you get quality that way. Do your homework, do a little research. I thank you, Athan, for your
thank you very much.
words. And Voula, I can't wait to dig into that. What did we call it? It wasn't a compote. We called it a smear. No,
a slather. When you slather it on your grilled fish, especially, it's beautiful. Yes. I'll include all the notes.
This is the olive oil.
Oh, I want to toast to that.
Yeah.
I'll give it this one. And then I mix it with some wine. That's the last part, because when you mix olive oil with wine, there's an interesting synergistic effect. What it does, it relaxes the endothelial cells and keeps them relaxed for 2 hours, which means it makes them more elastic. So it's great to have, especially in the morning. My grandfather used to have this every morning before he went off to the fields to work.
That's
what a
great.
beautiful way to start your day, like taking care of yourself, warming yourself up, but
Yeah.
understanding the value of what you have, like that
Yes.
connection, especially when you're going to work out in the fields, to connect before you enter the field with the field in such a holistic manner, to me is so
Exactly.
exquisitely beautiful.
Thank you all very, very much for joining
Thank
me.
you.
I think this was fascinating and interesting. I think we learned a lot and enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you,
Great.
Renee.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
Arlene.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Mwah.
you.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.